So very good afternoon to our viewers and welcome to the afternoon's English News Bulletin here on Channel 2. My name is Angie Meher, joining you for the afternoon, and we begin straight away with a look at news from home, where Egypt condemned in the strongest terms the Israeli occupation forces' deadly overnight airstrike on the Gaza Strip, calling it a flagrant violation of the ceasefire that took effect on January the 19th. Egypt's foreign ministry said in a statement that the strikes constitute a dangerous escalation which threatens to bring serious consequences for the stability of the region. Egypt, which brokered the Gaza ceasefire alongside Qatar and the United States, also expressed rejection of all Israeli violations aiming to bring back tensions to the region and failure of efforts to achieve calm and stability. Cairo has also called on the international community to immediately interfere to stop the Israeli aggression on the Gaza Strip, to prevent bringing back the region to a cycle of violence and counter-violence. Egypt has also urged for self-restraint by parties and the allowing of mediators to continue with efforts to reach a permanent ceasefire. The Palestinian health authorities, meanwhile, said on Tuesday that the Israeli occupation forces' airstrikes pounded Gaza, killing more than 404 people, many of them children, adding that occupation forces Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he told the military to take strong action against Hamas in response to the group's refusal to release the remaining hostages and because of their rejection of ceasefire proposals. As the ministry also called for the immediate ceasefire in the Strip and warned against any displacement plans. Hamas on Tuesday named the head of its government in the Gaza Strip, Sam al-Dalas, amongst the list of officials it said were killed in a wave of Israeli occupation forces strikes on the Palestinian territory. The statement said these leaders, along with their families, were martyred after being directly targeted by the Israeli occupation forces aircrafts. Statement also named the Interior Ministry head, Mahmoud Abu Watfa, and Bahjat Abu Sultan, Director General of the Internal Security Service, amongst those killed. The families of Israeli captives in Gaza demanded Tuesday that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stop the killing and disappearance of the hostages after Israeli occupation forces launched their deadliest strike on the territory since a January ceasefire. Hostages and Missing Families Forum said in a statement that the families of the hostages demand a meeting this morning with the Prime Minister, Defense Minister, and head of the negotiation team, in which they will be assured on how the hostages will be protected from the military pressure and how they intend to bring them back. The Arab League chief, Ahmed Abul-Ghaid, condemned in the strongest terms the brutal Israeli occupation forces' deadly airstrikes on Gaza, which killed more than 404 people, many of them children, and wounded hundreds of people. Abul-Ghaid said that the resumption of the massacre in Gaza is an inhuman act, adding that the Israeli forces leaders are waging an internal battle by killing women and children. He also stressed the need for the international community to pressure Israel to halt military operations immediately and return to the ceasefire negotiations in order to stop the war. Meanwhile, the United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres voiced shock on Tuesday after hundreds of people were killed in the most intense Israeli airstrikes in Gaza since a fragile ceasefire took effect in January. The Secretary General strongly appealed for the ceasefire to be respected, for unimpeded humanitarian assistance to be re-established, and for the remaining hostages to be released unconditionally. He called for steps to prevent a humanitarian disaster in Gaza after Israel unleashed its most intense strikes on the territory since the ceasefire. Also, Russia condemned the occupation forces' violence and warned against an escalation. The United Nations Rights Chief voiced horror on Tuesday at the most intense Israeli occupation forces airstrikes in Gaza since a fragile ceasefire took effect in January, killing hundreds of people. Health Ministry in the Hamas-run territory reported more than 300 people killed in the latest strikes. Furthermore, Turk said this nightmare must end immediately, adding that the last 18 months of violence had made abundantly clear that there was no military path out of this crisis. He further urged all parties with influence to do all in their power to achieve peace and avoid further suffering of civilians. Moving to Yemen's Houthi rebels, who condemned the Israeli resumption of strikes on Gaza, vowing escalation in support of the Palestinians after earlier this month threatening to attack Israeli ships in the Red Sea. Earlier, Houthis claimed their third attack on American warships in 48 hours, despite U.S. strikes that have sparked mass protests. The Houthis said they targeted the USS Harry Truman carrier group with missiles and drones, making the attack the third in the last 48 hours in the northern Red Sea. The Lebanese Health Ministry said that an Israeli occupation strike in the south has killed 2 people overnight after an Israeli military said it had targeted Hezbollah there. This was the latest in a series of deadly attacks in the area, despite a ceasefire agreement that took effect in November after more than a year of hostilities between Israeli occupation forces and Hezbollah. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we wrap up the afternoon's English News Bulletin here on Channel 2. I'm Angie Meher. Thank you for watching.